Seems like in this first chapter of Reasonable Faith, Dr. Craig, you kind of contrast knowing Christianity is true versus showing Christianity is true.
Yes, this distinction is one that I hit upon after wrestling for a long time with this problem of the relationship between faith and reason. And what I think pulled me in opposite directions is, on the one hand, it seems that we do have, through the witness of the Holy Spirit and the experience of God, a kind of assurance of the truth of Christianity that is wholly independent of arguments and evidence. The simplest child of God, or even a mentally retarded person who can't comprehend philosophical arguments or historical arguments for the Gospels, can know and know with assurance that Christianity is true. And you don't want to deny those people the privilege of having faith, which you would have to do if you say that in order to know Christianity is true, that you have to have all sorts of argument and evidence for it. On the other hand, what you want to avoid then is some sort of relativistic subjectivism where everybody and anybody who claims to have some sort of an experience is rational in claiming that he knows what he believes in this properly basic way. And so the distinction that I hit upon is this difference between knowing and showing. I think the way that I know that Christianity is true is, as Plantinga says, through the immediate witness of the Holy Spirit. This is an objective function of the Holy Spirit in my life, testifying to me that I am a child of God, that God exists, that I know Him, and so forth. On the other hand, because that is an interior experience, when I come to talking to someone else who doesn't have that experience, it does no good for me simply to say, well, I have this inner experience that you don't have, but gee, if you did, you would know this too. If I want to show him that what I believe is true, then I need to present arguments and evidence. And so I see the arguments and evidence as confirmatory of what I already know, independently of argument and evidence, but that I can use to show another person that what I know to be true in a basic way is in fact true, and I can give him good reasons to think so.
Dr. Craig, some have criticized this view and called it kind of a dual knowledge, dual source of knowledge. That you've got knowledge of Christianity through facts and evidence, and you've got knowledge of Christianity directly by the Holy Spirit. Is there any warrant to that criticism?
Well, I don't think it's a criticism. I think it's true, and I don't see anything that's problematic about it. I think that, on the one hand, I know that Christianity is true through the inner and immediate witness of the Holy Spirit. On the other hand, I do think that I have good evidence to think that this is true, and in a discussion with someone could present such evidence. So, to give an analogy, suppose you're accused of a crime that you know you didn't commit. You know you were at home alone in your room at the time this crime was said to be committed. So you know you're innocent. You don't need any evidence. You don't need any proof of that. You know you didn't do it. But if you were accused and dragged into court, you would need to produce evidence that would convince the jury that you're innocent. Hopefully you'd get some sort of an alibi or something of that sort. And that evidence and argument might be entirely sufficient to make them acquit you, that anybody looking at that argument and evidence would know that you didn't commit the crime. Now, that evidence is also available to you. It's not available to just the jury. So in a sense, you would be doubly warranted in your innocence, in belief in your innocence. On the one hand, you would know it immediately because you know that you didn't do it. You were at home alone. But then also you would have all the warrant that accrues to that belief from the evidence and the argument that the jury gets to hear. So you would have a kind of double warrant, I think.
Bottom line, as we end this program, Dr. Craig, it seems like you're saying that the poor farmer in a small town in the Midwest who is uneducated can come to know Christ without an exhaustive examination of all the evidence for Christianity, or a highly educated professor can come to Christ because he's persuaded by the evidence and the historicity of Christ and so forth. And they both come to the same Lord, but they seem to come in different ways. Do we have to do an exhaustive, or do we have to know the evidence and arguments before we can make a commitment to Christ?
Absolutely not. I think that your example is a good illustration of the fact that both of these people can come to the same conclusion, the same Lord, by different routes. And moreover, and this is the key thing that I want to say, both routes are perfectly rational. It is perfectly rational to follow the arguments and evidence to the conclusion they lead to. It is also perfectly rational to believe in the great truths of the gospel on the basis of the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. Both are the deliverances of reason.